Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this creating a cube island. So the only thing left to add in now is a few trees. Now what you can do is, if you want to get realistic looking trees into 3ds Max, you can go and download some free samples from VizPeople. They have a selection of birch trees. So what I'm going to do is, I've already downloaded them. I'm just going to click my Max tool, import, just hover over that, and I'm going to merge them into the scene. Now the better way to do this is with XREFs or VRay proxies. However, to make things quicker, as we're not going to add much more to this scene, is I'm just going to jump in here. I'm going to try and remember where I've saved them. So when you download them, you get a selection of these different trees. So I'm just going to select a few at random, and I'm just going to select the name that I want to drag in. And obviously this is a lot bigger because these ones are built to scale, so I'm just going to scale them down, move it over, push Z to zoom into it. I'm going to pull it up just a little bit so it's sitting on top, and then I'm just going to copy that tree over to there, and maybe once more over to there, obviously doing it as instances, as this will help to keep the file a little bit easier to work with. And I'm just going to do the same again, import, merge, and this one I'm just going to select a different one, wait for that to, and obviously because this is using the same material as the other one, I'm just going to click use scene material, and then scale this one down, and move it over there. If I could push that onto the back, as you can see it's starting to get a little bit slower, as these trees are obviously realistic, so they have a lot of information in with them. And instance, and just to make them slightly more individual, I'm just going to scale them slightly differently so that it doesn't look like I've copied the same tree in and pasted it a few times. And obviously the more varieties of tree you put in, the better, but to make things quick, we're just going to do this like that. Make sure this final one isn't floating, as that's generally a dead giveaway. And scale that down a little bit more. Actually might have a miniature little tree. Okay, so with that done, what we're going to do is get a relatively good scene. Obviously I'm using a 3D navigator. However, you can obviously navigate through, and to create your camera just do Control and C, and this should, if it's working properly, create a camera. If not, you can just go to create cameras, and if we create physical camera from view, obviously if you're using an older version, then it may be you just want to create standard camera, but for this we're just going to create physical camera like that. Okay, and with that all happy, what we're going to do is jump back into our perspective by pushing P, and we're going to zoom around the side, and as you can see at the moment the focus distance is on that, so we want to just select that, and we're going to align it with the base and make sure all of those are ticked. And if we jump back into our camera and go to physical camera, and then we're going to show safe frames, what we can see is that we can actually zoom in a certain amount, and we just set up the frame. So obviously if we click render now, everything's going to come out a little bit funky, but we might as well jump in and set our VRay settings. So when we click that, it will bring us up this, and obviously Max by default is normally at mental ray or something, or their default scan line. So we're going to jump over to VRay Advanced. I'm using version 3.2, however any version 2 upwards should work very similar. You may just have to play around with some of the settings a bit more. So we're just going to jump back out and close that, and we could click render production up in this corner to see what it brings up. Okay, so we have all our funky colours, which is going to render passes, and as we can see our trees haven't brought their textures in with them, so we can just cancel that And first things first, we're going to get our textures back on the trees as they're already in there. So we're going to click the little max, and we're going to go to reference and asset tracking. And if we refresh this, we can see that all the files are missing for these. And we're just going to right click and set path. And it might come up with something funny, but if you've loaded them in, you should be able to just navigate to that folder with all the textures in. Click use path. It may take a little while. OK, and then that's all OK for them. So they won't update automatically, but when next time we render, they should all be there perfect. So next thing up, what we're going to do is model the ground. Now this is a little complicated because what we want to do is blend the sand from underwater into the grass up the top. Now I'm going to show you one way that I've done this. It doesn't work very well for close-ups, but if you want something simple like this, this is probably the best way to do it. So I'm going to open our material editor. What we're going to do is the sand. Now Max should have a load of default built-in ones, so the easiest way to access them is you can import a substance. If we come down to maps and we find substance, drag that in, double click on it, and if we load substance, it should default to a textures. Double click on that, and we should be able to click onto sand. There we go, sand 01, we use that, and we're just going to edit some of the settings. So make this a little bit bigger, not very good on a smaller screen. Here we go. So we just want to bring the contrast up just a little bit. Actually we'll bring the saturation to 0.6, and that just brings us a little bit more colour into the sand. So what we need after that is a VRay material to plug that into. So VRay material, and we're just going to zoom these out a little bit and drag this diffuse into the diffuse. Now it automatically creates an output, which is fine. We're just going to leave that, and we also want to improve it a little bit by adding a bump. So we're just going to add a very basic noise. If we scroll down to find noise, and we're going to double click on the image to make it a little bit bigger, and I want to bring the scale down quite a lot, and drag that into bump. Okay, so that's a good thing to start off with the sand. Next thing what we're going to do is to make the grass. Now the best way to do that is to just get a standard grass texture. So I'm going to drag in my VRay material, double click on that, click on the diffuse. Sorry, my bad. I'm going to drag in a bitmap, and what I'm going to do is find something that I could use for a grass texture. So I'm going to jump around. Now I have quite a few around. I'm just going to find one that I have here. Now obviously you can just find these on Google or look for VRay textures online. And the one thing I'm going to do while I'm in here is scale it down just a little bit so that it will look better when I drag it in. And I'm just going to do 5 by 5, and you'll see why a little bit later. Now to merge these two together, the important bit, what we're going to need is to come over to the side, and it's simply going to drag in a blend. And we're going to delete the two standard ones and drag the sand in on top, and drag our grass in to material number 2. Now you see that all you can see is the top one at the moment, so we're going to need a gradient ramp. So we can come down here, insert our gradient ramp, drag that onto mask, and as you can see now we've got this sort of funny little colour. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this in, and we want that to be black. So basically where is black is going to be one of our textures, and where it's white, pushing random buttons here as usual. I'm going to drag that over there to get rid of it, and double click that, make that white. And I'm also going to delete this middle one, which you don't push delete, sorry, you just drag it to the side and that will disappear. So what you can see is our interpolation, if we make that as an easy ease, so they're both easy eases. We've lost most of our grass, but that is because it's hiding, and if we click VW then we can see that the grass is at the top and the sand is at the bottom, which is what we want. So I'm just going to move this over to the side so that I can see my grass block, and I'm just going to drag that and apply that there. Now it looks a bit funny, so what we're going to do first is double click our gradient, and we're going to show shaded material in viewport, and when we jump back over to here we can see it's all grey, and that's because it doesn't know what is the top and what is the bottom. So to get around that, we're going to add a Uvw map, and planar is fine. Okay, so with our material complete, what we're going to do now is simply drag that onto there. And one thing that we will have to do is double click on our material and make sure our mask is the interactive layer. And we're also going to have to double click onto our gradient map and make sure we select show shaded material on viewport. And with that done, you should see that we have something like this. Now we may have to, if yours looks something like this, then you may have to change it until you can get it with the white on top and the black down below. And we're just going to click on the Uvw map until it highlights in blue. And what we can do is we could stretch it just a little bit and move this around until we get something that we want. Okay, so that looks good. So the white is obviously going to be our grass, and the black is going to be our sand, hopefully. We may have to change some things around. So what we're going to do is open up our material editor again, and we're just going to select this and show both of these in the viewport. Now unfortunately the way this works means it's only going to select one or the other. So what we want to do is interactive, set our material to, which is going to be our sand, and we want to come over to here and select this sand, and hopefully with any luck, do the sand first, so select that, and as you can see our sand is loaded. We have to select, obviously show this one in viewport, and select our second one as interactive, and as you can see it's a little bit off, but you're only going to see a little bit, so we're just going to leave that as it is for now. Okay, so with our grass textured, what we're going to do is select this, leave this as sand, so we're just going to select that, close that, leave that sand for now. We want to materialize these little rocks to make these look a little bit more realistic. So what we're going to do is select off of that, select one of our rocks, right click, select similar, and open our material editor, and we're just going to make a standard material, drag that out of the way, and for the rocks what we're just going to do is make quite a dark blue, something like that, and we're just going to add a little bit of reflection as the rocks are going to be wet, and we're going to just add a tiny little bit of reflection, not much, but that should do fine. So we're just going to right click on this little dot and assign material to selection. Okay, so with that done, what we can do is texture these logs. Now what I'm going to do is use a pre-made texture to do these logs. So if I just zoom into one, what I'm going to do is import a texture, and this is going to come from VRay materials .de, which the link will be in the description. And this one's called Bark. So I'm just going to click on my little drop down arrow up here, open material library, and I'm just going to navigate to where I've saved it in a wood folder. And this one is called Cortetica. Not that I can say that. So with that done, I'm just going to find a free bit of space, drag that in, and I'm just going to undo that. I'm just going to drag it in somewhere with a little bit more space over here. And I'm just going to have to remap all the bitmap files. So just double click on each bitmap, click on it, and push enter, and it should find where the file is. Obviously it isn't, you're going to have to navigate through. But I think that's done all of them, and that gives us this wood text broken away bark. So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to right click and select similar to add it to all, and then just drag the little dot on top of it and assign to selection. Okay, with that done, I'm just going to close that for now. And what I need to do is, before I unselect all of those, is I need to add a Uvw map, and this time I'm going to add a box. You could also do it with a cylinder because of how these work, but I think for now we're going to use box. And the one thing that I've forgotten to do, as I always do, let's jump back into the material editor and just make this visible. And so hopefully, if I push F4 to hide all these faces, we can start to see all this. And what we're actually going to do is click fit first of all. Unfortunately that's made quite a large one, so I'm going to put them in manually. So the length, I'm going to do 100. The width, I may have to make them all 100, and then we may just have to scale it. Let's zoom in. Okay, so that's looking quite good. So all I'm going to do is extend the height maybe a little bit more. Obviously you don't want to distort the texture too much, so I might want to make the others 150 by 150. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. And the last thing to do is obviously these planks, so I'm going to select those and select similar, and I'm also going to use a pre-made texture for this. So bring up our texture tool, and I'm just going to import open material library, and you could do a standard material with any sort. I'm just going to make one that I've made, which can also actually be found on the VRay material. Actually no, I haven't got one, so what I'm going to do is find one in one of my saves somewhere. Go to wood and old wood planks, drag that in, just remap the wood files, make sure that's it, that's everything. And so just going to drag those onto the selection, minimize that, and what I'm going to do for this one is go to the top, and with them all selected again is add a Uvw map. If I can find it at the bottom, Uvw map, and we're going to do box, and we're going to do that's not enough, so we can try 1000 by 1000. Height is 100, as we're not going to actually see that, and we may have to click on the Uvw map and rotate it to be the same degrees as before, and then we're just going to zoom in, push the R tool, and we're actually going to scale the gizmo down just enough so that we can align all of our planks. Obviously you could just use a simple wood tool that's not already planks, or you could use one single plane and then you don't have to add anything in, but that looks good to me. So all the black bits being hidden. Okay, so the last thing left to do is the water. Now I've already done a tutorial on how to add water like this. You may have to play around with the settings a bit, but I'm just going to import that from my little cheat here, and this is exactly the same as I used in my last tutorial. There'll be a link in the description, and I just have to drag that onto there. Now the only thing I'm going to check is, because of this is scaled differently to the previous one that I did in my other one, I'm going to just reset the fog colour, just roughly for now, and then I'm going to jump back into my camera and just going to click render and see if anything happens. Okay, there we go. We're starting to have something coming about. Now obviously it'd be better to add more trees, and we can see our grass hasn't actually worked very well. We may have to do something with that. And our water has a few errors around the edge. Now there's an easy fix to that. So I'm just going to cancel that, close that. And for my water, with that selected, I'm just going to Control A to select all of the edges. And I'm just going to chamfer these and use this tool. So if I zoom in a bit more so I can see, I'll move the camera again, like I always do. Now 10 will be fine, and I'm just going to put quite a few on this. If I push F4, that I can see how many, and click the tick, and just zoom my camera back out as if I never moved it. There we go. And just to fix this grass quickly, so what we're going to do is bring our material editor back up, and we're going to find our grass up here, and we're just going to click on the original bitmap. I'm going to change the tiling to 4, and rather than explicit map channel, I'm going to do it planar from object and see if that fixes it. So let's just push F9 and render it again quickly, and what we can see now is that the edges work perfectly for our water, and our grass looks like the scaling is a little bit off, but that's an easy fix. So it looks like we need to increase the tiles a few more. So come back into our materials, and it might be worth to make that a little bit bigger and set our tiling. I'm not sure if I'm going the wrong way here actually. Unfortunately I can't remember what the best settings are. We'll try 10. Because it's a seamless texture, it means I can't actually see the edges to see that it is scaling down. But we'll just jump back in, push F9, and obviously these are using the default 640 by 480 settings, and there we have it. Obviously we could increase a few more rocks, but we've got our nice little jetty there. We could put a boat in or something. But I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know what you thought, and hopefully we'll do some more detailed ones soon. Thanks a lot.